Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find this show on Instagram or Facebook. If you want to find the stories, the transcripts, the notes from the episodes, those are all in the episode notes. The transcripts are on Podbean and iTunes. I know I got some questions about that again. Anything educational, we've been putting that on Gorilla Brave. We've been creating blogs. We've been creating all the educational pieces everyone's asked for in addition to the podcast. So there's a plethora, of information out there for you guys as entrepreneurs, as food entrepreneurs, for you guys, all the knowledge I have from all the years I've spent in various businesses, from mass production to restaurants to food trucks. I've crossed over with everyone that's been on the show, crossed over with general knowledge. That's what we've tried to do there. So with that being said, I have a very special guest with us from one of my favorite cities in the world, believe it or not, from Atlanta, Georgia. I do have a very strong love for Atlanta, oddly, and I love the lakes in Georgia, for real. But I have Jane and Ed Harris with us today from Chef Life Consulting and the Virgin Hair Fantasy. How are you guys doing today?
Well, thank you so much. How are you?
Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is your show, and actually I have nothing else today. Luckily, I've already done all my recordings. You're the last one for today, so you guys get as long as you want or as long as you have. So I'm going to give you guys the mic for a little bit. We talked a little bit about your background and pre-recording, but I'd love to hear more about you guys, little Jane, little Ed, before you guys sort of got into your entrepreneurial roles in food consulting and in hair. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then let's talk about what these businesses are that you guys have developed.
Sounds good. You want to go first?
Yeah, sounds wonderful. My name is Jane Harris. I grew up in Nigeria, moved to the U.S. During the Olympics, and after college, I got a job at a shoe store. It was commission sales, and I really enjoyed it. And I quickly moved up the ranks because I just loved it. It was my first time making commissions. I was like, wait, you mean to make more? The more. So it was a very good concept for me because I just loved serving people, and it worked really well with commission sales. So long story short, I ended up working for that company for 13 years. I started as just a part-time girl, moved up to a store manager of a $4 million store on Madison Avenue. And that's where New York, that's where I met Chef Ed. So they promoted me from Atlanta to New York to run their flagship store. So Chef, I'll let you start with little Ed.
Go ahead, Justin. I gotcha. Yeah, so a little bit about me and a little Ed. So I was born in St. Lucia, grew up in multiple islands. My parents were entrepreneurs, so we were always traveling. So I went from St. Lucia to Barbados to Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada. We lived in Guyana in South America for a while, lived in Jamaica. So I lived all over the Caribbean my young life, and then moved to Brooklyn when I was a teenager. Did school in Brooklyn, moved to Manhattan, fell in love with cooking. My whole childhood, my parents had restaurants, so I was always in the business, very familiar. And for me, once I got to high school and I saw what I could do there, I just went into it even more. And the Art Institute came to visit my high school, and, they did a little presentation. I fell in love with the whole school, went straight to Art Institute after high school, didn't even take a summer vacation off or anything like that. And, just worked in Manhattan my entire adult life, besides traveling the world to learn every chance I got. And that allowed me to just see different aspects of the restaurant business and really get to pick the avenue that I wanted to go, which was consulting. Because working in the restaurant business, this, depending on the type of restaurant you're working in, you're working 14, 16 hours a day. And for me, I wanted to have, more time with my family and stuff like that. So creating the consulting business was just something that allowed me to be able to spend more time with my family and then just travel the world, which is what I really wanted to do. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm gonna anchor something for the audience that I think is important. I think one of the things, in leadership, if I were developing leaders, even as a consultant or in my businesses, the things that we try to do If we really want to develop leaders, is we give them education, we give them experience in what we're trying to grow them in as a leader, but we also expose them to the world, not only to our businesses, but to other businesses or to events or to other humans around the world to give and expose a point of view. By the nature of your guys' journey, you've collected all three of those. I will also say this as my number 2 anchor in addition. So I'll get back to the collecting of skills, collecting of leadership abilities there, coupled with when we as humans in any environment try to maximize the resources we have to better our lives and better the lives around us, that skill translated into any situation, any opportunity, makes something happen. So what happens? Okay, so I get good at that. And then when a really great opportunity comes, maybe once in a lifetime opportunity, I'm able to now handle the opportunity. I just want everyone to understand that maximizing our ability and our resources to do more with it around us, consistency, leads to the bigger opportunities in life. Most people miss them because they don't have what we're talking about in a skill. Now collect that with the leadership, the 3 leadership basis points I just talked about. It is important. A worldly exposure, gaining experience in what you want to do, and then educating yourself along the way in whatever it is that you're doing. You know, I'm not talking only formal. That I don't want everyone to think about that when I say it, but I think that's the anchor for both of you, probably the thing that united both of you. But let's talk a little bit more about the businesses and maybe reflect on what I just said a little bit.
Justin, I think what you just said is epic because you're absolutely right. My husband and I, we've been married now for 15 years and we have 3 businesses in between us. We're working on a 4th. And the one thing that stays true is how we met and from our separate lives, just having exactly what you just said. We love to travel. We love, different cultures. We love having great work ethics. We didn't just talk about it. We actually exemplified it in our work. Like I was 18 years old working a shoe store, didn't have a clue about the shoe business. But I became the top seller within 2 years because I was like, well, how can I learn? What do I need to know? Like, how much more money can I make? How can I get better at this? I started reading self-help books, just to try to get better. Same thing with chef, taking courses, going across the country to go take a course from another teacher just to get better. And I think that yes, we're married from that connection, but it also helped us build multiple successful businesses by having the same skill that we acquired on someone's clock. Like because we're working for other people and then taking that skill into entrepreneurship has saved us a lot of money and really built us to who we are today.
Yeah, I'm going to let everyone talk, but I just want to anchor this as well because I think one of the things that we're talking about here is we have a voice, right? And I don't mean only vocally. I mean how we use our time, what we do with it, how we experience the world, and then how we give back to it. The other part of it is if humans are the ones buying from us and humans are the ones we interact with, yes, we have animals and cats and dogs, but they eat generally what we buy them. So, including farm animals. So that all those things being said, if we don't have an overall understanding of humans in a very large scale, maybe even internationally, maybe even from education or exposure or whatever we do, then generally our customer bases for our businesses can be very small. It takes a very great understanding of business, of the human interacting with the business and the different elements that make up our customers potentially all over the world to really have a business, because when we focus on only what we want or we like, we're not solving a solution. And number 2, we're generally not understanding what the world's going to need in the future. We may understand what it needs now, but we don't always understand what it needs in the future if we don't do what we're talking about here. So I'm going to let everyone comment on the first part. Sorry, but I did enjoy what you said for sure.
Yeah, I think what you said, it's when you have a business and you're trying to sell to multiple people, multiple nationalities, right? Multiple cultures. There's no way you can sell to other cultures if you don't understand that culture. And how do you understand that culture? There's multiple ways, right? There's doing research, there's going to that country, to that continent, there's interacting with those people. So for us, it was always easy for us to sell and to have a wider customer base, because I feel that Jane being from Nigeria and me being from the Caribbean and just being able to have traveled the world at a young age just opened our eyes to the possibilities of meeting new people and being open to different cultures. Because, unfortunately, like you said, human beings as a whole, some people are very closed-minded. And, if you're not open to learning about a new culture, about new people, then your mentality is going to be very small. And then if you have a business, your business is going to be small, because how can you sell internationally to an international customer base or clientele when you don't understand that clientele, right?
Yeah. And so what I want to add to that is you don't even have to travel the world. The international clients are also here. And I think it starts with interest. You have to be interested. You have to care. Like, for example, when we started, we didn't know who or where,
Our customers were
going to come from. So what we did, we opened up, like we started speaking multiple languages. We'll say, like, we'll create like reels and say thank you in like 4 or 5 different languages. Even if we didn't cover all languages, other cultures were like, oh, they're trying to bring everyone in. Oh, why don't you speak in my language? So it created this cool community without us even trying, because we had done Portuguese and Arabic and a few other languages, and people were like, oh, maybe you should do our language. And it became something that, and what that sent, the message that it ended up sending to the crowd was, we care. We want to know about you. We we don't know who you are, but we want you to know we're interested. If you teach us. So it created a very cool, and it was the foundation for, till this day, for our business. So, yeah.
Let's talk about, like, there's a pivoting point here, because there's working for others, there's going around the Caribbean, there's working for others in shoes, there's working where you're helping, you may have a commission, but at the end of the day, you're still helping grow others. I think there's a transition there that happens for you guys at some point where you're like, we're doing this for others, let's do it for ourselves. Let's talk about that, the conversation that maybe took place, or the triggering point that made that happen.
I think for us, that's a great question. It was, because we both really loved what we did. I mean, Chef loved his job. I loved my job. We really enjoyed what we did, and we were grateful with what we got paid. We did really well, but we did not like the fact that our time was so limited. And I think we wanted to be time rich, and we wanted to grow our family. And we quickly realized that we won't be able to be the kind of parents we want to be if we don't have more time freedom. So there was only one other way to do that. And entrepreneurship was just pretty much the only way. So that's kind of what triggered it for us, Chef, right?
Yeah, I mean, that, and the fact that, our first child was born, and I remember vividly, we were planning for her birthday.
Yeah.
I think she was going to be 2 years old, and it was really hard and difficult to get the time off. And, that turned into other times where we would try to do things and the time just didn't work because we had to work. And, we spoke to each other and we made a decision that, we didn't want to be one of the parents where, and this is tough because some parents just don't have a choice, right? But we forced ourselves to figure out a way to be able to give ourselves a choice, right? And this was us, saying, okay, what could we possibly do that could free up our time, make us additional money where we could possibly be able to request time off. And then even if we don't get paid, we can still take the time off. So that turned into us starting the hair business.
Yeah.
And, even with us making lots of money with the hair business initially, we still kept our day jobs because that's how much we loved our jobs at the time. But the more we did that, we realized that we couldn't do it anymore because of what we were dealing with prior to creating this new business for ourselves. And we just looked at the time we were putting into it, and we just wasn't getting the return. The ROI was just not there anymore. So long story short, we gave ourselves a timeline after a year of starting our side hustle, which started to make us more money combined than we were making at our current day jobs. And that's how we basically jumped full into, entrepreneurship based on that situation.
Yeah, I think this is important. I think this is something that I'm going to emphasize. I don't know how to emphasize it. I'm not saying one way is better or the other. I'm just going to talk about a level of happiness and joy in general from an entrepreneur standpoint. I think when we enter into entrepreneurship as a joy or a way of freeing ourselves, where we know profitability is essential because how else can we free ourselves? But money doesn't become the object of the trophy. The trophy becomes the level of freedom that we have, and the money can stack up around it. It's very important from a mindset standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because I know a lot of people, even later in years as we get and we become entrepreneurs, we tend to focus on the money as the leverage of success. Yes, it needs to be profitable. Sometimes at the beginning it's not. And sometimes what we are really trying to gain is freedom. And therefore, when we're chasing the freedom and we use that as the thing we look through, the ability to make money or be profitable becomes something different. We are more ingenuitive. It's not a word, but we have better ingenuity as humans. And for some reason, I don't know why, when it becomes time and money and freedom are part of that, okay? But the freedom is attached to having time, and money becomes a way of growing ourselves within that time. It's different of thinking, okay, money's going to solve all my problems. It doesn't. Money does not solve problems. Time does. Just so everyone, that does not mean I'm not saying don't make money and don't make profitable businesses. But what I am saying is what you always want to be in a position of is what we just talked about is time. Yeah. Having control of my time, having a profitable business that allows me to do that. And then interestingly, guys, when we get that down, the businesses do grow and manage. Can a business go off and lose that? Different leaders come on board, whatever, and lose those basics? Of course. I've seen it myself. I've had it happen. I just thought it would stay forever that way. But it is what we're talking about here. Let's talk about what these businesses are. You talked about the first one being hair. Why that one? Why did you see what I'll call the gap there to expose to get into business, and which is obviously profitable? You guys were saying that it was successful from a financial perspective from the beginning, even though you both kept your jobs.
The hair business came because I was having hair trouble, and I had invested close to, I would say, $1,000 on some hair extensions. And yeah, I mean, I was making, I don't know, I was making six figures, but excuse me, six figures in New York is poor. Okay. So I was at 120,000, but it felt like I was poor because New York rent was crazy. So $1,000 to just spend on hair extensions is a lot. But I spent it without even thinking. And my husband was like, yeah, go for it. You want to feel better? Sure. He understood how important it was for me to feel and look a certain way. So I was like, wait. And I remember not getting any sort of like thank you note or call. I was like, wow, I just spent $1,000. And I'm not even like a client that spends that kind of money all the time. And I was like, wait, what if because I was really great at making my clients happy at the shoe store. That's why I did really well at the shoe store. So I had 13 years of customer service and building client relationships that not only did I do it, I had a staff of 30 people that I had to train. So I'm like, imagine if I took that and I brought it into a hair business. How amazing would that be? The only problem was I hadn't gone to hair school. I didn't know anything about hair from a professional perspective. I just knew enough, how you have a home cook and a chef? Well, I was a home hairstylist. Like I did my own hair. I was like, wait, imagine if I did that. And that's exactly what I did. I went on YouTube and did a little bit of research. And I was so obsessed with making it work that within, I would say, a year of, YouTube University, I was able to make my first wig, and I literally used those skills to start selling hair. And yeah, that was why we went with the hair business. It was something that came from a place of need. And I'm like, wait, this could be really good. If I spend 1,000, what if other people are spending thousands? And they do, and they did. So
Yeah, I like this. I think there's an opportunity there. You can relate to it. If we're, God gave you something, a hardship that you were able to turn into something that blessed the world, I would say. And for that, there comes abundance. That's the money. That's the profit. That's the ability for this particular entrepreneur couple, for the audience, to continue to make this kind of impact in the world. I would say that that's the journey that you're on, just because of your life leading up to it. Let's talk about Chef Life Consulting. Let's talk about that leap right there. It's now, is it the second business you guys leaped into?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the leap. You've got one, it's moving, you're both still working full time. Where does the transition sort of happen, both into full-time entrepreneurship, for lack of a better term, and also where it's time to be like, I've got these skills, the world needs them, I think I can help them. Talk to me about that.
Most definitely. So we had the hair business, and that was going pretty good. We left New York and moved to Atlanta. And in moving to Atlanta, so backtrack. We were in New York. I was working at Budokan, and a year before we left New York, I quit Budokan, and I was just doing the hair business with Jane because we were just really busy. And we also had a child, an infant. So, our hands were pretty full. So we got to Atlanta, and I was like, I don't want to go back into the restaurant business full time, where back to working 14, 12, 16 hours a day. What can I do with the skills that I have? And I always had the consulting bug in my head, because when I worked at Budokan, that's where I met one of the chefs that I'm actually working with currently now. And he was a consulting chef for Budokan. His name is Angelo Sosa. And he pretty much was the consulting for the restaurant. And his job was just super amazing to me. You get to come in, you're a chef, you come in, you create a recipe, you create a menu, you show everyone how to do it, and you're gone. And that was it. No crazy hours, no crazy shifts. And I was like,
you and I are very two similar humans. From the production into the consulting, I don't want to touch the tangibles anymore.
Yes, exactly. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what kind of job is this? And why I've never seen it before anywhere. Like, it's not something that gets posted. It's not a job that you can really apply for per se. You know what I mean? Or fill out an application for. So when we got to Atlanta, I was like, okay, we're going to start a consulting business. I don't know how, where, or when, but this is the avenue I want to go. And in the process of working towards that, I said, what could I do in the meantime to make money? So we started doing pop-up events and dinners throughout Atlanta, in museums, in hotels, in different rental event spaces. And they were pretty amazing. We did theme events. We did all kinds of just private events for people, and that did really well. But I got very tired of doing it, because it was still kind of the restaurant, but you're basically setting up a restaurant in 24 hours, 48 hours, right? You have to bring in all the equipment, rent all the stuff, the staff. Like, it was a lot of moving parts. And it was cool. It was fun, but it also got very tiring. So I was like, the only thing that would really make sense for me to really keep my time is for me to just go full on into consulting, where I'm just in and out of different restaurants. Even if I'm there for 4 months, I can put my all in, because I know it's only for a short period of time. So that's how the whole consulting thing came about. And, we just ran with it. We literally, last year, we helped open up 4 restaurants in California and 1 in Atlanta. So it was just really fun to work consulting in different projects, from opening restaurants in hotels to opening restaurants in standalone brick and mortar places, or just consulting where I'm helping someone with their menu or training the staff on how to use a wok, So that was how the whole consulting kind of came about.
Well, one of the things I think, I'm going to anchor this for the audience also, just because I've used consultants like this before, and I've hired a lot of chefs in my day, executive chefs all the way down from every level of cooking, whatever, tens of thousands, millions of meals a day in some cases. And one of the things that I will say is a lot of chef and cooks the ability is in creating the food and stuff, bringing in the consultant. Anyone who's like, well, why would I do that? What a consultant also helps you do is standardize everything. It gives a level of authority and puts it in writing in a form that you've legitimately had a transaction for monetarily that allows that to be the leverage to concrete it into your business. It's important. And then that way, no one owns it or holds it like their baby in a business or can hold it hostage because you're outsourcing it and then training it to everyone. And I'm going to say this without saying it. Chefs have a lot of power in the kitchen and no one likes giving away that power. But from the standpoint of the company and balancing out the power, these kind of consultants coming in and doing this work balance that power in your kitchen or in your organization on a greater level. I'll leave it at that just because I do think it is important, and I'm not going to try to sell anyone on anything, but I will tell you sometimes an outside party coming in and setting inside concrete expectations is what you need. It's usually the folly in when consulting doesn't work, if they're really good consulting, is the company that paid for it never executes it properly. So I'm just going to, and I will say I've a lot of success in this, even wished I would have used more of it over the time as I reflect back on the 24 years as food service partners. So, okay, let's talk about skills, complementary skills, duo. Where do you complement each other now that you guys work together? You talked about doing pop-up events. You have the hair business that you're doing together. Let's talk about whose superpowers are what and where you guys complement each other as a team.
I think this is a great question. For us, people will say, how do you work with your husband? I'm like, I will not work with, I love working with my husband because I admired his work ethics from when I met him. He has amazing, he's very organized. I am better, but I'm not the most organized. I am very creative. I have great ideas, but when it comes to execution, I just sit there and just look. But Chef is an executor. He's like, okay, so this is what we're doing. How are we going to do it? Who's doing it? Right? Break down. I am into the human experience side. I am emotional, but it didn't do well for me growing up, but as an adult, as an entrepreneur, it has made me so much money just by, I tell my students all the time, because I also coach other entrepreneurs. I'm like, if you just care for people and show them love and you're kind, that just separates you from so many. And I tell them all the time, I have made so much money from just being kind. It is my default. It's so easy. Today I found out it's my client's birthday. I'm sending her flowers. I can't send everyone flowers, but the fact that I heard about it, I'm telling myself, God wanted me to know that. I see that as an opportunity to make them smile. Now she's going to be my client forever because I remembered her birthday. So I'm into that service, and it works well with the restaurant because when I'm working with Chef and I'm hosting some of his events, I bring that energy on. I'm like, so what's your name? I'm looking at your eyes. You really would think you're the only one in the room when I'm in front of you, because that's how I genuinely am invested in everybody that I meet. I genuinely care. I compliment them on something that I see beautiful about them. That has worked for me for years. So when I'm selling hair, I use that. When I'm with Chef, I use it in every business. I've been able to do that. So I think that's where we complement one another. What would you say, Chef?
Yes, one of your super abilities is customer service, and putting yourself in other people's shoes. So that, and just the empathy, that you have for people. And I guess for me, you already said, organization, but also executing. For me, once I set my mind to do something, that's what we're doing. And, we get it done based on the fact that that's what we need to do. Right. And I think learning also, I love to learn new things, especially things that I know can help me be a better person all around. So I dive deep into just learning as much as I can about anything, even with cooking, for instance. I love to be able to travel. Last time we were in India, or no, Thailand, I took classes, right? So we go to India, wherever it is, looking up how I can learn anything I can about food from different cultures, because I'm able to come back home and bring that and use that to develop new recipes. When I work with clients, I'm able to access all of these different classes and courses and teachings that I've taken from different parts of the world and put that into new menus. So for me, learning, I think, is one of my superpowers. Yeah.
I like it. Let's talk about bringing all of this together, how you guys operate now on a daily basis. I think you mentioned there's a fourth company you're creating. We haven't talked about the third one yet. Let's talk about the future for Chef Life and Virgin Hair Fantasy. Let's talk about, what this is as a dynamic. I mean, obviously, I think your children are probably, by the nature of being around you guys, already starting to sponge some of this stuff up by nature, the entrepreneurial spirit, I'll call it, the transition of the Holy Spirit being contagious also. And talk to me about this. What is the future? What is this sort of going? What is life like now as entrepreneurs? I don't know. The show's yours. I have a lot of questions in there.
So I think for us, the third business came about with the combination of the hair business and Chef Lab Consulting. So that's why we created the Chef and the Wigmaker, which is a hub for entrepreneurs where we help you start. We help you go online. We help you get vendors. So we brought our skills from our corporate jobs and the skills of being entrepreneurs for over a decade. And now we teach. We started teaching 2 years ago. We have over 300 students that have taken our courses. I'm really happy about that. But the joy of passing on, because Chef just loves to learn. I love to learn. So the joy of passing on the knowledge that we've acquired to other entrepreneurs, it's like intoxicating. Like, yes. I love it.
We love to see people win.
We just love to see people win and see people like, I will never have a business, to see them have an online business and get their first sale. It just makes us so happy. And it feels like that's what God wants us to do, because we've been doing this now. I'm like, what's next? Every time we do it, the joy, we can't describe the joy. So that's the third business, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. Now, the fourth business, it's like we are homeschool parents. We've been homeschool parents, about 3 kids now for 4.5 years, and we get so many questions about how, when, and so we're like, wait, maybe. So this is not something that's out yet. So we're still working on how we're going to figure that into everything else. So yeah, that's, again, wanting to help people and just enjoying. Now we're like, if think about all the children that would have better lives if their parents were able to just, the ones that want to, because not everybody can and wants to, but the parents, because we were those parents that wanted to, just didn't know how. So we wanted to share that journey and the skills that we've acquired to help people do this homeschooling thing and still be entrepreneurs and still travel and still have fun and just teach them what we did. So that's something that we're looking into for the future.
Yeah, I love this. The Chef and the Wigmaker, obviously the combination, I think that's education. I want to emphasize this for the crowd. Continuous education in all levels is the way of the future, particularly as we live longer and we figure out ways to hack our ability to not die, for lack of a better term. The longer we live, the more our lives are going to change. We're going to go through longer transitions in life. We're going to want to experience more things, gain more education, have more exposure. See the reason why those 3 things are most important, why I emphasize them also for the audience, only for your businesses, but for you, is because we have this longevity now. It's not just, we're going to spend one time in a job for 25 years. That's not the way it works anymore. And it's not necessarily because the world changed. It's because our lifespan changed and our health changed. We can keep going for longer periods of time, for a lot longer, because we are generally healthier humans. Overall, someone will argue with me over that, I'm sure, but I was in healthcare for 24 years. I did see general increase there and people's awareness in the United States of healthy eating. Does that mean it's always getting better? No, the bottom may grow larger than the top, but at least the top's growing in this case. So education also for children. These two things that you're doing, I think, are probably pretty important based on what I just said, the continuous education of the human. I think more and more we're going to see humans have a corporate life and an entrepreneurial life, gaining of life skill, and then a freeing of one's life. And by the nature of AI and robotics and things like that, and the way the world works, I think education is going to become more important on a continuous basis, especially as things change, business opportunities change, technology changes. We've already seen that over the last 20, 30 years. So it's obvious that it only is going to speed up because that's what we've always seen in human history. Let's talk about the why, the give back. Like, you obviously see a need, but you don't have to give back. You could take your time and compound more hair business or compound more consulting. You don't necessarily have to go out and help people or educate kids or whatever. Why? Right?
It's the feeling. I did not, I mean, honestly, it's not something I wanted to do like that because we were so busy with Virgin, the hair business and the consulting business. But then periodically I would do a live on Instagram, or I'll get a question. And when I would explain it, I would feel like happy, I would feel happy. And I'm like, and the feeling, it was just different. It wasn't a feeling that I could shake off, and I wanted to do more. I would go out of my way to do more. When someone would ask me, "Oh, Jane, okay, your hair looks great, but how are you able to show up online 24/7 and you're still homeschooling your children?" I'm like, wait, let me tell you, I got a hack like that. I would just go into a full-blown conversation. And I was like, well, maybe I need to look into this more. And I would always pray to God for direction, for him to guide me. And that would always come up in my thoughts and my feelings. So that's pretty much where that came from.
Amazing. Your family building this, children involved in the business, seeing it because they are homeschooled. I've got to imagine that part of their education is you guys being entrepreneurs at this point.
Definitely.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, I grew up on a farm. My mom was an entrepreneur. My father's an entrepreneur in the food business. And I learned a lot from them at a very young age, counting quarters, counting cash, whatever it was, mowing fields, just different skills that we don't necessarily always learn, that we get to learn when our parents are entrepreneurial. Do you recognize that as part of the education in your life, and you realize that you're probably giving them more than most get at such a young age because you are doing it at home and the businesses are with you guys also?
Oh, for sure. That's 100% a definite yes.
Oh, yeah.
We purposely
strategically
talk to our
intentionally,
kids
yes.
about, and the thing is, we explain to them and we show them the possibilities of working for yourself and working for someone else, right? And we explain to them the differences, the perks, the return on investment for working for yourself versus working for somebody. And I mean, they literally, my 9-year-old will look around the house like, "Hey, daddy, can I do XYZ to make some money?" Or they're always figuring out ways. Grandma come over and is like, "Hey, grandma, can I give you a massage for $5?" Like, they're always, we have sown the seed into them where if you need something, if you want to buy something, you have to come up with the money on your own. Like, we're not going to just give you money. So they're always figuring out ways to work to make money for themselves. They're never really asking, "Can you buy me this? Can you buy me that?" Very I wouldn't say very frequently, very rarely they will ask us to buy something for them, but 100% they will ask to do a job to make the money. They love the independence of being able to buy things for themselves, and they want to be able to have their own businesses. Like, this is something they bring up often.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a biblical standpoint and from a entrepreneur standpoint and from a family standpoint, I think generationally we may have gotten this a little bit more in other generations in the United States, but I'm going to say it, and I think everyone would agree, is that the one thing that we are called to do, no matter what, and all we really have control over in a free will world and our faith and our trust is to make sure that we don't continue on bad things from generation to generation. So, and that we compound good things into generation to generation after us, particularly in our families. Okay, it's not necessarily what do I do now? How do I get what I need now? It's also we are rewarded, we are given things, we are given and built businesses as entrepreneurs. A lot of us, not everyone, I would say it comes in a lot of different ways. Greed definitely has its benefits to some in the short run. But in this case, what we're talking about here is the very essence. So I'm going to give you everyone the guideline. And when I say biblical, it comes to this. We gain skills through suffering. Those skills lead to a glorifying of us and hopefully of God. Also, then the only way to truly keep it and make sure it continues to exist, Book of James, is we need to give it away. So in order to keep what we have that was blessed to us, given to us, we need to now go give it to others. We need to be the vehicle. And just because someone else didn't give it to us doesn't mean we shouldn't give it to someone else, okay? And then to take it even further from a third standpoint is if we're going to learn something in each stage of this game, the point of it, the learning, is not only to grow me, but it's so that I can grow others. And when we do that in our businesses, or we provide solutions that do that, which we've just talked about, all of them, all four of them, real solutions, human changing solutions, confidence to better running your business, to combining the both to being better humans and entrepreneurs, so we avoid some of the hardships in the long run that are unnecessary, because wisdom is passed on. Wisdom is actually the ability of realizing we don't know what we don't know. So you guys have provided all that. So for the audience, like, pay attention to this. This is not accidental. This is not whatever. There's skills that have been gained, decisions that have been done, choices that have been made as a couple, even just getting married, having children, that have led to this. So the audience asks, what are the important decisions? Well, finding someone that complements you but also pushes you is important in life. So everyone's always like, Justin, what's the most thing you ever gained in entrepreneur? Like our life partners, like how we support each other, how we find that partnership is number one without a doubt.
Yes.
And if we in that we need someone we can grow with, I would say would be the second piece of that. The growth has to happen. Both have to be willing to grow. That's a big one. So let's talk about how you guys make decisions, conversations, tough ones, because there's a lot of, I think, in the food space, and you guys have probably already run into this, there's a lot of couples or partnerships that are also relationship based in the food world, even if it's sister, brother, or whatever. There's this family dynamics there. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you guys obviously know it because you went through it yourselves.
Definitely. Working together, it's important for us, and I think what really makes it successful is the understanding of each other, right? And not, pointing fingers, being able to express yourself without being disrespectful, because there'll be times where we're doing things where one person knows more than the other. But how do you convey that information or that message where you don't seem like you're talking down to the person, right? Like you really, and then to even rewind, to backtrack that, it's like if you're married to this person, then you should already kind of have that respect for the person to begin with. So working, with them, you should be able to still relay that same respect. But for some reason, some people just cannot do it, even though they're married. So for me, it's very tricky, or I don't understand if you're married, why you can't work together, but it's not for everyone, But for Jane and I, we made a conscious decision a long time ago to respect each other's position in the business, in the companies, right? And respecting the talents and the knowledge that we each bring, right? And then being able to use that to our benefit. So I think because of that and the understanding that we had with each other, we were able to really work together properly. And no decision that we make in our companies is done by one person. Like, we run everything by each other before we make any decisions.
100%.
I've been in talks with a few different companies right now to consult for some really big projects. And before I would even send the email, I'm like, hey, can you read this over one more time to make sure that everything is good before I send it? And we do that 24/7. Like, any big decisions that we make as company, it's always ran by the both of us first. Like, it's never made on just one person's decision alone. And I think that's why, that's why we are where we are today, because the ego is not there for our businesses, right? And the ego can easily be there because in our own right, Jane is amazing at what she does, right? In my own right, I'm amazing at what I do. So, it's easy for us to be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. But we would never say that to each other because we know it's not going to end well.
No.
And the only thing that's going to suffer is the business.
Right.
And we're in the business to make money. So why would I then jeopardize that just because of ego? You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. I am amazed about how many people do the opposite of what we just said. I'm like, no, why? I don't understand. You're bonded for life. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So hopefully, and wow. So there's that whole dynamic. But let's talk about now, like, lastly, sort of how you go about, managing all this, because you do have a lot of time. I think everyone's question is going to be, how do you do all of it, plus raise a family, plus homeschool? We don't need the cheat code, but I think what we need is, what I'm asking, I don't think it's a need, is an understanding, because I think a lot of people understand how to turn their days into multiple days and divide and conquer that are successful. But I think in general, those who don't have the skill or weren't shown it or didn't develop it in a partnership with someone don't even know how to go about getting what you guys sort of have built. And if they were to start somewhere, I think they might get overwhelmed thinking they need to start this company that sells a lot of things right away and not realizing that at first they had to sell shoes for someone else.
That's a great question. And I think for me, one of the things that makes this work is, knowing what our strengths are, right? And allowing each person to do what they do really well. So we divide and conquer with everything we do in the house. You know what I mean? Everyone has their responsibilities between Jane and myself, and then we even delegate things to the kids to do based on their ages, right? So with the business, it's, having access to our VAs, that's like, for us, it's one of the things that allows us to be able to travel and be away for a month at a time, to homeschool and still do our business, right? So that's a big part of our business, is having our virtual assistants that we have working with us. And then the other part of that is just creating a business that allows you to do the things that you really want to do, and in doing that is finding something that you actually love to do, right? Because when you love to do it, then you're not really thinking about time, right? Because we literally work 7 days a week.
We do.
But
we love it.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is that we're not working 10, 12, 14 hours, 7 days a week. It's maybe 6 hours one day, maybe 4 hours one day. On the weekends, we might work 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, right? But that came with time, you know what I mean? It took time to get there, and it was us working and figuring out, okay, we need to do A, B, and C so we can have D, E, F lined up and ready to go.
And it goes back to what Justin said earlier, where when you're creating a business, you have to really think about what kind of time do you want? What kind of time you want to put into it? And based on that foundation, you can create the business around that time.
Yes.
So when you're time rich, you can do so much more.
Yes.
Right? So for example, I'm just going to take a simple example like emails. This was something that had me in shackles. Like it was like a stressful situation. I had 100 emails. And to me, as a creative, emails would take away from your creativity because it's so like stressful. So what I did was I created a system with my emails. If a customer has this situation, this is the kind of email you send. If when this happens, this is the kind of email you send. So creating systems that can operate in the back end so you can move on to other things are important. So we have created systems around each of our businesses and even in our home. Like, for example, with the home, how we eat. Cooking for the kids can be a lot of time, but the way chef has us trained, we meal prep. We cook every 2 weeks. And we may make a fresh salad here and there every day, but the long hours of cooking and trying to figure out what to eat, grocery store and all that, it's systemized. Like chef has a system. So that saves us a lot of time. We don't always go to the mall to shop. We do everything online unless we absolutely have to do it. I'm not at the mall walking through the aisles, like trying to find stuff. Like everything we do is about, okay, how much time? How can we cut down on that time? So having systems and, so you can implement it and save you time is really important for our family. It has really helped our family.
And I think the other part of that is like when you said, when you decide to be an entrepreneur and pick a business, right? You have to really think about what kind of business you're going into, because there's some businesses that you literally have to be there day and night. Like if you're going to go and open up a restaurant, you're going to be there. If you're selling breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're going to be there for a lot of time, right? So being able to pick a business and then figuring out what is your role in that business is what is going to allow you to maximize your time. Because, for instance, the last restaurant I opened, it was in the Hilton in Indian Wells. And I'm sorry, not the Hilton, the Hyatt. And, it's open obviously for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it's in a hotel. So my schedule when I was staying at the hotel, I was working until 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I was back at the restaurant at 5 o'clock in the morning because we had to get ready for breakfast, which started at 6:30. So, you have to really be careful with the kind of business you start, because you could create a jail for yourself without even realizing it until it's too late. So you really have to think about what you want to do and how much time you actually want to have to yourself, or at least have time to do other things so you can really maximize that. And I think that's really the most important thing, figuring out what kind of business you want to do and then really doing the research and the R&D into what it actually takes to run that business in terms of time.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on this because I have, over the last now 2 years almost, I'm in the hospitality. I've crossed over because hotels and family thing, long story, but I'm in both now, similar way. But I will tell you this, what shocked me the most is, I had facilities that ran 24 hours making food, but at a massive scale. But when you're at a restaurant-sized facility running 24 hours, that's a whole other thing. And hotels are that in some cases if they have room service or service 24/7, or resorts. And as I got into it, I was like, oh, this is a whole other animal when it comes to consulting or task forcing. You and I are going to probably have to trade some stories. And then on the other side of it, I've spent thousands of nights in my life in Marriott hotels over, the last 28 years as an entrepreneur, like titanium elite for life. And now that I'm on the other side, looking at it from this standpoint, wow, I would say it's a whole other beast than I could have never imagined, particularly the food. It's a definitely different game in some ways. And you have customers that don't sit at a table for 2 hours and leave. They park in the building for 7 days and eat there multiple times. So you want to talk high level? Wait until you have a customer you upset that's sitting in your restaurant every day, 7 days a week in a row, sometimes maybe 14 days. Like you'll get a whole understanding because and they're irritated with you and they're not going to move and they're just not happy and you made a mistake and you're going to live with it for 14 days for real. So, but it's a different game. So we'll talk about that. The other, offline, because I'm interested to hear stories, or maybe an online another time. But as we sort of wrap up here, a thing that you talked about is that time, that decision maker. So I'm going to ask this because I already kind of know the answer, but I want to get it from you guys. When you're making decisions then on business, taking on new consulting projects, new whatever, the thing that you're balancing out as a couple is not necessarily the money being made. You want to be profitable. You can ensure that. But what the decision actually is coming down to is whether or not you have the time to complete it to the level of standard that you want. Correct?
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
100%.
Yeah, it's, for us, it's, like you said, obviously we have to make money, right? Because that's what we're in a business to do. We have to pay bills, we have to survive, we have to take care of our kids. We're building generational wealth. But at the same time, is it doable? Is it plausible, right? Can we get it done properly where it's not going to diminish our brand?
Yeah.
Right? So it's always coming down to, once we have decided on money, then time, it's, can we get it done? And is it going to interfere with
our system
and our businesses that we already have running?
Yeah. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
As a successful couple, I can't emphasize it enough to anyone that the weirdest part about it is this. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to emphasize this for everyone, and then I'm going to let you guys comment as the last thing. I think I have an idea of how to wrap this up. One of the things that my father did well in my family is he ran us like a business. He was the CEO of our family. But what my mom did well, she was the president of our family. Okay. She still ran everything. They played their roles. So, okay, who's the chairman of the board? Well, my parents allowed God to be that.
Nice.
In whatever way possible, even in their brokenness. Right. And so one of the things that I think is important is we're often so worried about making sure our kids or everyone is able to survive or do whatever in the world. And we send them to school, we prepare them in a world that's constantly changing, sometimes now sending them to college to gain things that literally AI just made obsolete in the last 2 years, which is scary. Some kids just graduated from college in June and AI made their stuff already obsolete within a few weeks, And so that thing, and so why I say this to everyone asks me, what do I think about all of it? I think, how do you do anything in life? Well, you need to prepare yourself and your family. Does that mean that you have tough conversations with your family? You have tough conversations with each other, conversations about money that no one likes, even when you have it. And it doesn't get any easier. Even when you have it, sometimes the conversations are hard. We make mistakes. But I think that from that mindset of what you guys are talking about, and everyone in the audience has probably heard me say this, the best way to be successful in business and as a family and in our callings to God and our purpose is to make it the same thing that is in our life 100%. How we do one thing is how we do everything. So it is the very yarn that we literally weave the blankets of our life that look like our life, but it has to be one yard. There has to be a universal thing that holds it all together, because often what happens in the end of life, as I've seen, is people do have a lot of regret of what they didn't do. And generally, if you've made money, if you've made any kind of money or had any level of comfort or retirement, the thing that you're not always saying is that I wish I had more money. I could have done more for my family. Okay. But what everyone does have in common, what I just said, is everyone wishes they could have done more, not made more. And that was the shocking thing to me. The more time I spent in long-term care homes, in hospitals, the trophies on the wall at the end didn't mean anything, but the legacies did.
Yep.
To everyone around them also, in the short time that they had, regardless of whether it was 5 years or 100 years, it was still short in their perspective because they wanted to do more. And from my perspective, I'm going to say this, and for this podcast, and I'll let everyone comment on it, is the emphasis is the happiest joy. Okay. Biblically, we are guaranteed joy, not necessarily happiness. But what I mean by that is the joy comes from it, the purpose and the pursuit, as we just talked about. When they're doing the work, it doesn't feel like work. And in that trueness is what everyone's heard me say. Ancient Hebrew, work is the same word as worship. So if that's true, well, why would worship be hard? Why would it be hard? Why would working for something greater for the future be not enjoyable? People were right. If you don't enjoy it, then it's probably not the right thing to do, and it's probably not the right thing for your family to be setting that example.
100%.
Exactly.
So that is, I'm going to let you guys comment on what I just said as we wrap up and let you guys close it off. But I think that that's what you guys live in. I think that's the best way to do everything. And while I haven't always found success and I've had some trial and error that I'm not so proud of, but I will admit it's okay, guys, to realize we make mistakes and make amends and hit the refresh button and allow God to recreate, repurpose, and regenerate us for what we're meant to do in His plan. But the microphone's yours, guys.
Gosh, I agree with you, Justin. You couldn't have said it better. Like, having what you said about your parents is true to what we do here at the house. And Chef always says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I love that. That has really helped us have structure, but effortless structure, not so rigid, but just having priorities and boundaries and doing everything to just for example, how we are all in the house on a journey to get closer to God. That was something we said at the beginning of the year. We're going to do our best to have more personal relationship with God. We did it as a family. We had a meeting about it. And we're very public about our businesses because our businesses are online. We do reels and YouTube videos. And I'm like, I'm not going to hold back because I'm doing a YouTube video to say thank God because I don't want to offend a certain client. So we decided to just merge everything. Like, this is how we do say thank God. We are grateful for God's gift. We're here because of the grace of God. Like, we are very into doing everything in accordance to how we believe and doing everything the same way. Chef, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, Justin, it's figuring out the roles, having God be, of course, the ultimate person to guide the family into what we need to do and just listening, right? I'm very big on listening to, direction from God, because there are times where, we'll get these inkling or this idea or something will just pop into my mind. And I'm like, where did that come from? And of course, when I follow it, I'm like, this could have only come from God. Like, there's just no way this would have happened any other way. Right. So being able to do that and then just picking the thing that you're happy to do and being able to do that, it's how you really be successful. And like you said, you're going to make mistakes. Like, no one's perfect, right? But yet everyone chases, well, not everyone, most people chase perfection. And, that's the worst thing you can do because it just sets you up for failure that's unnecessary, right? But being in your truth and being true to yourself when you do mess up, knowing that there's a learning lesson there and being able to learn from that and then take what you messed up, take what you learned and apply it and keep moving. But as long as you're moving towards the direction of what you're supposed to be doing, then whatever happens is meant to happen. And that's just part of the journey because, there's no finish line. When you're an entrepreneur, there's no finish line when you're living. Like, you're just going and it's a marathon, right? That you're just keep going and you're going. But as you go, you keep growing and you're just bettering yourself in the process, right? Meanwhile, you're keeping God at the front focus at all times.
That's a North Star. Like that, I think being always seeking God, because as an entrepreneur, you're making, like, how many decisions do you have to make a day?
And not only that, is the fact that to be an entrepreneur, you actually have to be a crazy person.
You do.
Because there's no way. There's no way.
That's why I swear he chose Peter, because he was the only one insanely running around with multiple boats as an entrepreneur trying to gain fish when no one else was gaining fish. He's like, I know I can do it. I'll get fish eventually.
You're absolutely right. It takes a certain mental space to be an entrepreneur, because who in their right mind is going to leave a guaranteed income to go chase money that is not guaranteed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, just having that mental capacity, but just knowing that if this is really what you're supposed to be doing, then God is going to guide you every step of the way. And you don't have to worry about seeing the next step. Like, just know that as long as you put your foot forward, that step is going to be there, right? But it's in knowing that you don't have to see the step to take a step, right, is really important. And, that's just the philosophy that we live by and we go by each and every day.
And I think what you said is very important. The constant listening, it allows us not to get too far ahead of ourselves and too concrete in dreams and goals. And it allows God to pivot us in the ways that lead to more prosperity, not only for us, but the world around us and God's kingdom. I will also say this on what you said. The most important thing that we can actually understand as humans is our frailty, meaning our imperfections, our sins, our setbacks, our character defects. I could keep going on with all the names we call them. But the reality is when we face them and we face them with intent, enduringly over a long period of time with steadfastness, we gain a set of skills in life. Just like to anchor it to what I said before, when we use all the resources around us to grow us and those around us, and we become really good with that skill, and combined with this skill that we're just talking about, hey, I'm imperfect, I need to learn, I need to grow. In order to utilize the resources around me, I need to know what I'm bad at. So the best thing for me to do is, what do I suck at? Where are my character defaults? Justin's a prideful person. Okay, that's my sin pattern for sure. Okay, just so everyone knows. And so what does that do to me? Who do I need to offset that for me in my life? And so that's part of what we're talking about here. My imperfections and facing them help me know how to balance out my world with a quote unquote group of apostles or a group of mentors or a group of spiritual advisors, whatever we want to call them. But it helps bring us fellowship. And then the other part I want to say in that you just said is, if we don't start to live everything outwardly, where we talked about bringing God in and now everything's universal, we spend more energy, God-given energy through the Holy Spirit, on managing all the walls of our life and the different categories of our lives and who we are. And if we spend all of our energy managing, I'm going to call it an image, because at this point we're managing different images because we're taking our lives and breaking it into sections and delivering it in sections that we think people will like. Now we have to manage what section everyone gets, because that's what we do as humans. That energy is wasted energy, where if we unified it all into one thing, it not only grows our family in authenticity and vulnerability and helps them be able to grow in the world, survive in the world with a skill set, a true skill set that's beyond NDA education, but also that we're able to grow as humans and we're able to grow the humans around us, right?
Great.
So thank you guys for your time. Where can they find you guys?
I will say real quick, I did not expect a masterclass because I would love to come back and I'm going to go search for some other, I don't know if you put out, I don't know, do you have a book?
No.
Well, I don't have a book yet, but maybe we need to write a book. But
yeah, we should write a book.
I
don't have a book yet. Yes, correct.
I've learned so much from just being here. I just want to thank you for your time. Chef, where can we find you?
So all social media, it's Chef Ed Harris. Very easy. You can find me LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. X, it's Chef Ed Harris.
And I am the Virgin Hair Fantasy. That's where I play. That's where I reside on all social media.
Yeah, and you guys are welcome back anytime for the show, and I'd love to connect with you guys more. So definitely an open book there, and you guys taught me a lot too and reminded me a lot as well. And I know it wasn't easy to get to where you guys are. I know it's not going to be easy to get to where you guys are going. So, but I do know that God's equipped you guys for sure. And I'm glad I get to witness the test that's led to your testimony for sure, and the audience, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to spread the good word.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And congratulations, you're in seminary, right?
Yeah, I'm trying.
That's a big deal.
I'm trying. Take an entrepreneur and then take the milestones and the key performance indicators of his life and then flip them on their head and take everything in society and everyone has told you about being successful and then truly revalue it and put it through a different system. Not saying what before is wrong. It's just saying that it's often better to see it through a different perspective and growth. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Justin, for your time.
Most definitely.
And what an honor. So much.
Yeah, you guys are great. I love what you're doing, and I appreciate and totally rooting for you guys and how you're helping the world and helping those around you and what you're doing. Oh, and I have one last point for everyone, just because I know I'll get this question. If you don't have great organization and you can't take a lot of things thrown at you and put them into an organized space, consulting's not a role for you. So it's one of the things that I've seen the hardest are people that do really well at their jobs and go into it, but you need to be able to organize it. And in food, it's organizing chaos that's going on and trying to not only put a recipe around it, but then the operating procedures, all the sub recipes, all the ordering, all the pieces that go into that one recipe. So if you're not meant to do it and you're not good at it, you're not going to be very good at doing it for everyone else. I'm not saying you can't get better at it if you learn it or you go seek help or learn on YouTube over a period of time. But generally, I wouldn't jump into it just because I know I'm going to get that question. So I'll cut it off for everyone in advance. My advice to you is go learn from someone, find a mentor or a group or someone that can help you standardize your life in those ways. And I will say, yes, most entrepreneurs are not standardized. They take freedom to that level. But actually, as we talked about earlier, it doesn't have to be rigid, but there just needs to be structure. And in that structure is the ultimate freedom.
That's right.
100%.
That's right.
So
that's right. Well said.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming on the show, for your patience as we try to coordinate and our schedules went all over the board. I love your endurance and steadfastness. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And the audience, follow these guys, listen to them, start paying attention. They're paving the way. They're on mission. And what did they say about mission? It doesn't necessarily mean going somewhere else. You can do it in your own place. Internationally, people come to you also. So make a difference in your own communities. So thank you guys. Love you guys. Yeah, absolutely. And we're out.